Another massacre by terrorists may not be far off, but where? Well, we now have a new clue. The head of the European Union's police agency, it's known as Europol, is warning that ISIS is focusing actually not on the U.S., but again on Europe to carry out more Paris-style large-scale attacks. This is the latest attempt at diplomacy in the Syrian conflict, gets pushed back until Friday. The talks were supposed to kick off today. Instead, we got a new video from ISIS showing 9 of the Paris attackers as they trained to carry out that brutal mass murder with the added threat of a new attack in training, ostensibly in Europe again. John Hanna of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies is joining us in a Fox Business exclusive. And John, look, as we understand, when it comes to the peace talks, they can't even decide on the guest list. So I'd rather take the new threat first here. Let's begin with that. What do we know about where this video was shot, and how important is the location of where the video was shot, and why?
Hi, Liz. This video is almost certainly shot in Syria, and the importance of that is that it is just confirmation of the fact that this Paris massacre back in November was, in fact, plotted, planned, supported, and directed by the ISIS leadership in Syria. They systematically organized this mass terrorist attack on a European capital, and they're now threatening and saying that this is a serious part of our strategy, not only to be able to fight and build the caliphate here in Syria and Iraq, but to be able to conduct terrorist attacks, mass-style terrorist attacks, anywhere in the West, especially in Europe, but also in the United States. And they're threatening to do more, and we should take them very seriously. Well,
they show real organization here, and that's a sad thing, because the peace talks alone cannot show organization. They were supposed to start in Geneva today. John Kerry, Sergei Lavrov, his counterpart in Russia, and a whole bunch of other people. But while ISIS, of course, is not included, it's who would represent the rebels that they're arguing about, because Assad's people would be there too, representing the government. So it's not as if we've had peace talks that actually gave birth to any type of progress. Could this one be that? And does this negative foot that we get started off on really hurt that process?
Yeah, I think there's no question that the prospect of any kind of success here in the near term is very, very low. We've already had 2 rounds of these negotiations in 2012, 2014. They were both utter failures, and there's no reason to believe that this will be any more successful, in particular because of the Russian, Iranian, Hezbollah intervention into this conflict on the side of the Assad regime. The Assad regime is now stronger than it's been at any point in the past several years. It is not going anywhere, and that, of course, is the fundamental demand of the rebels, who are saying that the only way we can have a political solution if Assad goes quickly. That is now impossible.
Well, if Assad feels that the government is winning, that, of course, would probably reduce the concessions that he's willing to give if he feels empowered. Did it surprise you? Because I watched Secretary of State John Kerry's speech very closely in Davos, Switzerland at the World Economic Forum. It surprised me when he said, I was honored to meet the Ayatollah Khamenei, the spiritual leader of the Iranians. Meantime, it's the Iranians, as you mentioned, who are gumming up the process of future peace efforts, correct?
Oh, there's no question. And not only in Syria, of course. The Iranians have actually been on a rampage since the nuclear agreement was signed in July. There has been one series of challenges after another to the United States, not only in Syria, but in Yemen, of course, with the ballistic missile launches, with firing missiles near our fleet in the Persian Gulf, and, of course, the seizure of our sailors in the Gulf just a matter of a week or 2 ago. So since this Iranian deal, we've had real trouble with the Iranians, and anybody who believes that they're going to be our partners in bringing peace to Syria, I'm afraid, is sadly delusional.
John, before I let you go, I've got to bring up Russia here, because Russia's intervention in this whole thing over the last several months has definitely tipped the balances in the favor of the Assad regime and the government there. That said, I don't quite understand why it is such a negative to, let me rephrase that. People are saying if you remove Assad, what goes in there? And is there any plan? So why is it such a horrific negative to keep him there from your standpoint?
From my standpoint, the reason is because achieving any kind of political solution with Assad in power is virtually impossible. He has been responsible for the slaughter of upwards of 250,000 Syrians. He has sent more than half of his country fleeing from their homes, most of them rushing now to Europe, causing one of the great crises we've seen in Europe since the end of World War II. So a settlement with Assad is impossible. A settlement where Assad leaves, but you maintain some of the basic structures of the regime to prevent chaos from ensuing is, of course, what the ideal would be, but we're an awful long way from there.
John Hanna, Foundation for the Defense of Democracy Senior Counselor. See you next time. Thank you.